everyone. You may have noticed that this is not, in fact, us talking about Lysistrata Jones. So, long story short, our team has been bonkers busy with a bunch of different creative projects that you'll hear about today, and we decided we wanted something that was a little bit easier on our brains. So don't worry, if you were looking forward to us talking about the show, we will get to it eventually, but until then, enjoy today's episode on disaster.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast that Leslie Nielsen doesn't want you to hear.
Nope.
It's Monkeys and Playbills with Paul DeGurse, Jillian Willems, and a very special guest, Miss Stephanie Sy.
Woo!
I guess that would have already played.
No, we like to hear it a second time from our guests.
Absolutely.
That's the only unfortunate thing about actually being on the podcast. I don't get to hear the music
Nope, you don't.
in real time.
No.
I'm sure there are going to be other awful things that happen, but that's right now the worst thing.
For those of you just joining us right now, this is a show where we talk about Broadway musicals that have had 100 performances or fewer on Broadway, not counting previews.
And what the heck happened?
And today, we're here to talk about Seth Rudetsky's Disaster! On Broadway. Yes.
If I had $1 for every musical that had an exclamation mark in its name, in its title, we would all be bazillionaires.
Well, look, what else?
On Your Feet.
On Your Feet.
Fela.
Yeah, oh, yeah, Fela.
Strike!
I don't
Strike!
know.
Strike!
Amazingly wonderful, world-renowned musical Strike. Of course.
Yep, absolutely.
Duh.
Winnipeg favorite Strike. So this show...
We're all so quiet right now because we don't even know where to begin. So why don't we begin with the dates and then we'll just try to make some sense of this thing. So previews began at the Nederlander Theater on February 9th, 2016. It opened on March 8th, 2016 and closed on May 8th, 2016 after 32 previews and 72 performances. Not at all the worst we've covered by a long shot.
But surprisingly not incredible for a show that has this much Broadway star power.
Right.
Yes.
This has the most Broadway stars of any show we're ever going to cover. It's just absurd how many people who, if you live in New York, are like inside jokes are in this show, you know?
Should we play the synopsis game, Steph and Paul? I'd love for you to play it together.
Oh, I'm so glad that Steph is here to play this with me. We've been filming a project for the Village Conservatory right now. And Steph's also been in rehearsals for a really incredible project at Prairie Theater Exchange. All of this to say, I watched this show in 3 chunks, in the morning before going to work each day. I think between Steph and I, we might be able to champ out a full plot synopsis and figure out what's going on.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, good luck, go.
People in New York.
Roger Bart owns a casino. He's also a gross dude.
Yes. It is having a grand opening trip situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch of people coming on board, all different kinds of types of people.
There's Seth Rudetsky's a scientist.
Yeah, correct.
We have a little kid, but it's actually twins. And there's kind of a gag where the kid always runs off stage and then comes back, and then the kid's the other twin.
Yeah, that only happens a couple times though. So
You might have missed it if you saw this show.
Yeah. Don't blink, because you might miss that bit.
Who else? There's a disco diva. She's got a dog. And there's a nun.
There's
Yes.
a nun.
There's a nun who plays guitar.
A couple who are madly in love with each other. And there's a couple who were madly in love with each other and are reuniting.
Mm-hmm.
And this is we're spending a lot of time on this because this is basically Act 1 is just these characters existing.
Yes, absolutely.
Totally.
That is very, very true, because nothing actually really happens until Act 2.
It's in the 70s, so all this music is disco music.
Yeah.
The opening number is 10 minutes long and it's just hot stuff. Donna Summer's hot stuff as we meet all these characters.
And then there's a disaster.
There's a disaster!
Whoa!
Exclamation mark.
And then plot twist, people die. And then some people live. The end.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's a parody of like 70s disaster movies,
Right.
from what I understand. That's not a genre that I'm super familiar with. It's a parody, much like Airplane, which I referenced at the beginning, is a parody of disaster movies.
Right.
And from what I understand, this one's especially a parody of the Poseidon Adventure.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So that's disaster. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. I don't know what we missed. Like, there's Adam Pascal from Rent. He's like a waiter.
Cater waiter.
He's a cater waiter. And Seth Rudetsky, who's like the big mover and shaker behind this show, is a scientist.
Oh, there's the lounge singer lady, who's the mom of the twins.
Yes, who is the lounge singer on the cruise. She just doesn't have it together. I mean, no one does. I think that's her storyline.
It's important that everyone know this, because as we discuss, we're not going to be discussing plot or structure or anything,
Right,
because that's
right,
pointless.
right.
We're going to be discussing this show is a series of gags.
Yeah.
Yes.
And songs.
Okay, so we got Roger Bart, who plays Tony, who is the creepy guy, right?
We should do this. We have Roger Bart and Roger from Rent, so we should be careful.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, and then we have Marianne, who is the journalist woman who comes on board to write an article on the unsafetyness of the cruise.
Yes.
And then we have Chad, the waiter.
Cater waiter.
Cater waiter.
Very important, because that's a 70s thing. And they do not stop mentioning it in the Wikipedia article.
Right.
That's about it, right?
Jill, if we wanted to license this show, what would the plot synopsis be?
Okay, so I took it from Wikipedia this time because all the other ones were really long.
Yeah.
Like, even in the reviews of this show, like, they're like, let's summarize the plot real quick, and then it would be like 4 paragraphs.
Yeah.
So I just pulled this from Wikipedia, and it says, the plot follows a group of New Yorkers that attend the opening of a floating casino and discotheque that quickly succumbs to multiple disasters. These calamities correlate with plots of various disaster films of the 70s, such as earthquakes or killer bee incidences. Additionally, this play keeps with a 70s theme by being a jukebox musical, using popular songs of the decade as musical numbers. So this does not go into any of the characters, because I think in order to do that, we have to acknowledge, like, how much work it is to, like, actually follow every single storyline.
Yeah.
And this is something I'm sure we'll talk about when we talk about the book.
So let's talk about production history and give a little bit of context for this very, very bizarre piece of Broadway history.
I love it. Let's do it.
So I guess my first question is, we're pretty far removed from New York in some senses, but we're all people who have worked in musical theater and are fans of musical theater. Mm-hmm. How were you guys aware of Seth Rudetsky before this, if at all?
From YouTube videos of Obsessed, I think. Steph, what about you?
Yeah, the same. Who I think is very funny in those YouTube videos. And we'll talk about how we feel about him in the show, but...
Yeah, oh yeah. Really quick, for those of you at home, if you're listening to this, chances are you probably already know who Seth Rudetsky is. But if you don't, he's a Broadway personality who came up as a musician on Broadway and then became a personality deconstructing famous Broadway songs or performances, and has since just kind of become an all-around musical guru. He has a radio show now, he has his YouTube show, and honestly, I think he's pretty rad.
Mm.
His critiques and deconstructions are intelligent without being boring. I think he's usually very informed when he's talking about things and is still entertaining. And I think the work that he does as far as promoting Broadway as an art form is A+ stuff. I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Well, now that you said all those good things...
Well, this, yeah.
Wah, wah.
So this is context for the creation of this show, because this show was created initially. Seth Rudetsky was approached to create something for a not-for-profit benefit, a benefit for a not-for-profit organization.
Right, yeah.
And he was like, oh, I always used to joke with a buddy of mine in college about doing a musical about disaster movies. Maybe I'll take some of those ideas and pull that together. So we pulled together this series of performances for a benefit. And they were like, that was really funny. That went over really well. Let's put this up for a week off Broadway in like a 90-seat house. Mm-hmm. And they did. And everyone was like, that was awesome. Let's put this up off Broadway and run it for a while. And they did, and everyone was like, this is great. At this point, Seth Rudetsky is a pretty big deal, so people are coming to see the funny YouTube guy and see his show. Mm-hmm. And they were like, this is such a big success. let's grab all my famous Broadway buds and put it on Broadway.
I mean, it's a pretty smart idea.
It makes sense on paper.
On paper, it sounds like a brilliant idea.
You can't argue with it.
An off-Broadway, then 2 off-Broadway runs.
2 off-Broadway runs, totally.
Yeah, one in 2012 and one in 2013. Then another benefit concert in
Right.
2015.
So by 2016, Seth Rudetsky's Disaster has been a pretty big part of the culture. Like, we have to assume,
Yes.
right? It's been...
Sorry, when you word it like that, that's so funny. But yeah.
Well, and he named it Disaster. So it's like, it's going to be successful just because he named it Disaster. So if it ended up being a disaster, then great.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
It's a smart move. It's a great move. We might as well say it out loud now. It's the kind of theater you would associate typically with dinner theater.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so much so that it feels almost bizarre. This is what I mean when I say we haven't covered anything like this on the podcast before. If you were going to apply the same critical lens as we applied to Bonnie and Clyde last week or something, we would say this is a pile of shit. But you can't.
But you can't.
It would be foolish to do that.
Yeah.
You can't apply the same critical lens because it's a different thing. That'd be like saying McDonald's sucks because it's not the keg.
Right, sure. That's a good point. I also have a theory about how dinner theater was invented, and y'all can tell me if this sounds correct.
Okay, go.
So I had a feeling that the person who invented dinner theater was just like hanging out outside like a theater at some point and was like walking around like looking for their next gig. They're like, oh, what am I gonna do? Like, I really have to innovate and make something good. And then they saw some people like leaving a theater, and then they overheard someone say like, oh, if you're gonna take me to a show that bad, you gotta buy me dinner first. And then and then the person was like, oh, that's a great idea. We'll give them dinner while they watch the show, so they don't even know what they're watching. They don't even care because they're full.
Let's dive into Disaster. Let's talk about the book.
Okay, so there's a lot of credits here to get through. So here we go. Book by Seth Rudetsky and Jack Plotnick. Concept by Seth Rudetsky and Drew Garaci. Additional material by Drew Garaci. Music, orchestrations, arrangements, and scoring by friend of the podcast Joseph Joubert. Song arrangements by Seth Rudetsky. Vocal arrangements by Michael McElroy. Dance arrangements by David Dabin. And then there's like a bunch of composers of this music because it's a jukebox show. But we can definitely talk about a few of those songs specifically to give folks an idea of what the soundscape is. But let's start with the book.
Like that additional material credit. Drew Garaci there, that's Seth Rudetsky's like college bud who he made this up with. Mm-hmm. So that's why he gets that credit. And then Jack Plotnick is the person who he ended up partnering with who actually brought this to fruition and directed it and everything.
Yeah. Lots of cooks, let me tell ya.
It is a goofy book. It is very goofy.
That was a nice pause.
That was so good. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Okay, so Paul's adjective is goofy.
Yeah.
Steph, do you have an adjective for this book? Like any one word that you could use to like describe what this felt like?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I would just do another like synonym of goofy. It would be like wacky.
It is.
Ooh, yeah.
It's all very predictable too.
Yeah.
In a weird way. So it's not really wacky. It's fun. I would say
Fun.
Oh wait, we're talking about the book.
Because this is the thing. The production is fun, but I don't know if the book does it any favors. Yeah. You're honing in on this thing thing that even though this book is one of the most original components of it, it's like maybe the biggest challenge of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
But I also thought it was hilarious, but not always because it was supposed to be.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
It's like, should I be laughing at this because it's genuinely written to be funny? Or am I laughing because, like, this person is trying to mine every ounce out of this line? Or am I laughing because it's just, like,
what's
so
happening?
Beyond.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, I don't think it really matters. Like, I'm sure if Seth,
that's a good point.
Whatever reason you're laughing was great. And I think actually probably was the intention of the entire musical. Like, even if you're laughing because it was just horrible at moments, that was the goal.
Let's talk about a few specific instances. And there's one joke right off the top where Roger Bart, as a sleazy casino owner, is really enamored with a woman's breasts. And we were texting and we were like, oh, geez, this friggin' musical. Come on now. What do we get ourselves into here? Come on.
But then that never happened again.
Exactly. That's the bizarre thing.
He's always enamored by women and the prospect of being with women. But that was just like, it was hot. It was a hot joke right off the press. Right at like the first like 30 seconds of the musical.
Yeah.
And you're, oh, okay, so this is what it's going to be.
In general, this book gets better as it goes along.
Yeah.
Okay, I disagree.
Oh, really?
I think it gets worse. I think the first act, I'm like, yeah. And then the second act, I'm like, give me my bed. I want to sleep now.
Yeah.
That is the polar opposite of how I felt.
Yes. I love it.
Also, I didn't watch it on the same day. I did Act 1 one morning,
Right.
Act 2 the next morning. But Act 1, I was like, oh, this is like, it's got some funny bits, but it's a bit of a slog. And Act 2, I was like, ha, look at this, look at it go.
Oh my God.
So usually when we discuss book, we've also been discussing like this way the piece is structured, book in a broader sense.
Right.
So
Yeah.
my pitch for why I like Act 2 better is because in Act 2 we finally get to the disasters.
Of
Yes.
course.
The disasters only happen at the end of Act 1, and in Act 2 they're throwing around these mannequins as dead bodies. Someone's like stabbed on a slot machine thing, and they're singing a song and things like this. And this is absurd, and this is very bizarre and kind of gross. But it's, for me, that was when it was like, it clicked in for me, and I was like, oh, that's what this show is. Yeah, this is like the gross over the top show. All right, let's do it. This is like Evil Dead or something, you know?
Yeah.
But because of how long it took to get into that, I think it could be very confusing for a lot of people to try to follow that, because you have to stick with this play long enough to understand who everybody is, and then you get to the disasters, so the payoff comes so late that you're just like kind of waiting for the thing, the other shoe to drop. Yeah.
But Steph, you felt the opposite. You were in for Act 1.
I was in for those characters. That's the thing. I think, I'm starting to learn this more about myself, that I think that I have very cheap taste. I do. And really my criteria of something being entertaining is that it's funny, that it has good characters, or that the plot is really great, or that it's beautiful. It could be one of the four things. Usually the characters is number one for me. Like if I have good characters, then I can get through anything, really.
And so that's why you loved this show, and especially Act 1, because Act 1's all character work and nothing else.
Exactly.
No plot, no beauty, just character work.
Just characters. I'm fine with it. And I mean, obviously we'll get into music later, but it helps that the music is so great.
Well, I was going to suggest that we put the music into the book, because otherwise the music's going to be like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10.
Right.
Because it's the best hits of the 70s, which was a great era for music.
Yeah.
So instead, let's discuss the music and rate it all at once, because the music helps the book in a huge way.
Yeah.
The best decision this show ever made was being a jukebox musical.
There's one thing that I want to bring up that Steph knows about me, but I don't know if our listeners know necessarily. I don't like the twins device in any like movies or musicals, like at all. Needless to say, I wasn't super thrilled about this sweet young actor having to play twins, but
We'll save. I'll discuss this in the performances section, but I think there is a potential twist for the reason they chose this kid in specific.
Oh, great.
oh, okay.
Until then, though, we love the music. We don't like the twins, but the music helps. In my opinion, the music helps the book, especially in Act 1 when everything starts to drag a little long and you're like, wow, enough with the character work. They freaking throw on Knock on Wood or something. And I'm like,
that's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, but also on the music topic, and this actually might be a performance topic, but I was just thinking, first thing that I did was look up the soundtrack on Apple. And the first song is obviously the Act 1
Hot Stuff.
And the first thing you hear is Adam Pascal. It's so Adam Pascal that I was like, I love this because I love Adam Pascal. But then I just had this thought that like anyone who didn't like him or hated him, right off the pop. I'm like, this is enough to set someone like south real fast.
Yep.
That's
like,
so true.
Like, no, I'm not listening to this musical. 0% gonna listen to it.
I will also say, these are some incredible songs. In general, the arrangements are like underwhelming at best.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing special going on, especially when you compare other jukebox musicals. We'll talk, I'm sure, a little later on about something like We Will Rock You, which Steph Sy was in for like a year on the road, or Mamma Mia, or these are all shows with excellent music departments who created really cool things.
Yeah.
Out of these songs, out of these pop songs that were created for 3-minute radio performances, they created really fascinating musical theater style arrangements out of these songs. American Idiot is another one that jumps to mind that all three of us worked on. The arrangements on American Idiot, taking it from a pop album to musical theater, is incredible. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And, these arrangements, you could have popped them out in like an hour per song. You know what I mean?
It really seemed that way. Like, I feel like we could count on one hand the amount of harmonies. Like, there wasn't a lot of group singing, you know?
Right?
It was a lot of just, like, one character sings one section, and then we move on.
You have literally hired some of the best singers in New York.
Yeah.
Let's hear some harmonies.
Yeah. And then there's also that thing that happens where they're like, they chose a song based on the first line of the song and nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, did you notice that happening a little bit? Where it would be like...
Every time.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, the setup is excellent. Like, we launch into the song and then the rest of the song's lyrics don't really match with what we were just doing. So that happened a few times.
I think it happened the entire time.
Okay, thank you.
You love going to a musical. For me personally, I love going to a musical that I know the music to.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I love going to new musicals that I haven't experienced ever. But even for this podcast, I wanted to pick a musical that I knew, so at least I could comment on the things that, like, the songs that I knew and why I loved them or why I didn't like them. But what was great is we got this musical. All of this music I grew up with because of my parents. They listened to this religiously. That's another reason why I really loved it, is this nostalgia of being able to listen to these songs arranged in a musical theater style, which is, again, the most hilarious thing to me. It is so funny to me when any kind of song, any pop, rock, whatever, punk song is arranged like in a musical theater show. It is so funny to me. Like, nothing is funnier than that. Adam Pascal singing, ending the song, how do I live?
Yeah, totally.
Like, that's how it ends. Like, only in musical theater would a song like that have an ending like that.
All of this to say, my first question to you is Knock on Wood the greatest song ever written?
I mean, it's a great song.
That set up to that song.
It came on at the end of Act 1, and I was like, here we go. I'm here. I'm in. Dancing around my living room.
Oh my gosh.
My other question is, out of 10 playbills, how many monkeys would you give The Book and the Music?
Oh dear. I want to say that listening to this podcast, I'm going to comment that I feel you two are incredibly generous with your ratings. You're always so incredibly generous. And then I always said, when I get on that podcast,
it's going to tear it down.
But it's hard because I actually... This is very difficult because I loved the music. I absolutely love 70s disco. I just love it. I'm going to give it an 8.
Wow. Wow.
Because that's how much I love the music. It just kind of outweighs everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, if there was one or two clever ways to get into the song, like, bonus.
Fair enough. I'm going to agree with the 8. The book is a 6. And you get 2 extra points for the music because friggin' come on. Knock on Wood, Hot Stuff, etc., etc. Some of the best songs ever written in the 20th century. 6 for the book, add 2 monkeys for the music. Bringing us to an 8.
Paul, I'm not sure if you have said this or not. Do you like the song Knock on Wood? Like, I'm having a hard time. Like, I can't tell if you love it or hate it.
I actually want to second that question. I wasn't sure.
Well, y'all are being so generous So I had originally put the book at a 5.5, and then now that we're doing it all together, it's definitely like a 7.5. Like
Nice.
I have to add a lot because the music, like I can't help myself.
Yeah.
It's like a bag of potato chips. I open it and I eat the whole thing. So
Yes.
even if Adam Pascal is singing it, you know.
And we're going to talk about Mr. Pascal. For now, though, let's talk about the direction. Who directed this?
This musical was directed by Jack Plotnick, and it is Jack's only Broadway credit, but does lots of film and TV, acting and writing, is my understanding.
Yep.
The musical director was Steve Marzullo. The choreography was by Joanne M. Hunter, who was a performer and now a choreographer. And that's the team.
This is a tough thing again. This is maybe the last category where it's going to be that thing of I have to judge this objectively based on what it is, not what my idea of like we can't judge this against Parade.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because this direction is absurd, but I think it's good and I think it works. I like this direction.
Mm-hmm.
Steph, what's your hot take?
My hot take was I just didn't really understand what the vibe was supposed to be. If it was supposed to be satirical, or are we really committing to these characters, over the top, these crazy characters, like, and when these jukebox musical songs come in, do we know that we're singing them?
Right.
Like, there was a lot of like, do funny things when it's funny, but when it's not, like, take it seriously.
Right.
I think that's astute. I think that's real astute.
Yeah, it did seem like everyone was sort of in a different show. I do think that maybe falls to the direction in this case because it was a bit disjointed in that way. Because the scenes were quite short and happened kind of all over, it was difficult to follow at times, especially in Act 2. I think Act 1 was pretty good because it moved, along nicely. But then once everything started to happen and unravel, it was like, wow, where are we even right now?
Yeah.
And that's so funny because I didn't care. In Act 2, it's just like, she's gotten attacked by sharks.
You're like, I buy that.
The twins, they're all on a raft. Okay. Like, I think the hope is that you're pretty drunk by Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is a bit, just everything.
Yeah.
It's like Act 1, you're introduced to characters, and then Act 2 is just bit after bit after bit after bit, to the point where they can't even finish more than 2 lines of a song because there's no room for it. There's too many bits to be
Absolutely.
You notice that? Hey, absolutely. There's almost no complete songs in Act 2.
No. That's probably another reason why I didn't like it as much, because I was like, where are the songs at? I've been tricked into Act 2. I bought my drinks, got real drunk. I'm back sitting on my seat, and I have been duped.
I demand my money back.
I demand 50% of my ticket back.
And most people, it's the other way around. Like by intermission, and there's only been like a half of a disaster. They're like, "Where are all the disasters? I want my money back."
Well, yeah, because if they're coming to see it because it's based off these 70s movies, then they didn't get any of that.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. It almost seems like the direction is inconsequential to this.
There was one thing that I really liked, but again, I don't know if it was design or direction, but the moment where they were tossing the twin, so Lisa is a mannequin at this point. Lisa's a mannequin, and then she like faints, and then whatever. It's when they're about to be rescued, they go to throw her through some sort of bottom part of the ship, and then there's like a trapdoor situation.
Like I thought it was like a manhole or something. Yeah.
And I quite liked that little trick.
I did too. I agree. This might again be set, the puppets I really, really loved.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I thought they were so fantastic. You know, in the best way that, like, there's so many fringe shows out there that are so charming because they're putting that this show didn't cost a lot and really making it a known fact for the audience to relish in and to also find funny.
I'm speculating, is that one of the reasons this show is actually fun to watch, even for not even for us. Is this one of the reasons we enjoy watching this show so much is because we see these tricks and we've all been in this show before or all used these tricks?
Yes,
Like you see the twin bit and you're like, they're doing that bit. I remember when I did that bit. There's the bit where the like something's going on in the ship and they put a bunch of the lights go out on 4 people and then lights go up on, they've put 4 mannequins on windmills and it's like the people are spinning around, getting spun around in the ship. And you're like, what a fun, that's clever. That's a fun bit to do. It's appreciation as much as enjoyment. You know what I mean?
And I also think that a lot of people probably band together to make those decisions, right? Could you imagine being in the room where people make those decisions where like, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? They're like, yeah, that's great. Let's do that. Like the one with the twins in the hands, even though I didn't buy this bit, I like don't doubt that a group of people had to make that decision.
Yeah.
Totally. Out of 10 Playbills, how many monkeys would you give the direction?
I am going to give the direction 3 monkeys out of 10 Playbills.
Wow! Wow! What a twist! That's so much lower than you rated the book.
I just don't know that it was directed. That's my note on that. It feels like it was written by Seth, and then these players, these Broadway players came in, and then they did whatever the F they wanted to. Is how I see it. And then, you got the 3. I probably would have said 2, but you get the 3 because the puppets came in.
The puppets are funny.
And the director had to at least have been the person who approved of them.
I'm going to be a little more generous. I'm going to say 4. Mostly because you guys have kind of convinced me. You've talked me through, and I totally agree, how hard this show is to follow. Like, we couldn't give a plot synopsis. I couldn't tell you at all what happens in this show unless I'm describing, like, bits. But that said, I really like the bits that I like. I'm a sucker for shtick, and there's so much shtick in this.
Right.
So I'm going to say 4. 4 is my call. Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel conflicted because if I'm watching it not knowing all the work that this show probably took directionally, like trying to wrangle all those superstars, that in itself would have been a task to make everyone almost in the same show, but by the same token, that didn't happen. So I think it's like a 4,
Averaging out at a 3.5. That's not crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what did the director do is maybe my biggest question.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
Seth wrote it, but probably wanted to be in it, so he's like, who can I hire to kind of just take the lead on this? He was maybe the person that was connected with all these Broadway stars and was like, hey, come on board. I mean, as evidence in how the earlier productions of it came. The director's job was just to set a tone.
Which he didn't do.
So
yeah. I think it's that and the fact that it was born out of these benefit performances and off Broadway performances.
Right.
Where you're like, I've seen this from the beginning, and man, it played great at this benefit where everyone was drunk and just desperately wanted some entertainment. So I'm not going to change it. I know it plays. Great.
Yeah, totally.
You're treating these weird circumstances like out of town tryouts, but it's not the same environment.
Yeah. All right. Should we do the choreo?
Well, let's talk. If we want to talk about something that works. No, it doesn't work.
Well.
Okay, Jill, go. This is what I get for speaking first. You guys are both excellent choreographers and dancers.
Every time I watch a show, I'm pretty much like, oh, that was too much choreo. Like, almost every time. And this time I felt the exact opposite.
Yes.
Where I was like, I actually want more and almost constant choreography. But I do want to call attention to my most favorite moment, and now I demand every show I work on to have this, a Morse code tap dance.
From Faith Prince. From living legend Faith Prince.
And it was so poorly danced, but I did not care. Didn't care one bit. I loved it. I thought it was clever. I actually quite liked the music of that. So that song alone, 10 out of 10. But then we can talk about my actual rating after I hear from the two of you.
Very good.
That's my hot take.
Steph, what's your hot take?
I agree and disagree with that.
Very good.
It just, come on. What are we dealing with here? Let's go. Like, we need more choreo.
Why did you decide on subtlety now? Why was this where you showed restraint?
That's what I'm talking about, tone. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, this is the show to do the choreo. Like, that's a director's job to be like, we need more choreo in that dance. I can't stand this, but I hate when choreo requires singers to do things that can't allow them to sing properly. Like, gyrating movements when they're singing is just so irresponsible. It's like, that choreographer needs to go to jail. Like, how dare you never ever make your singer do that? It's just so mean. And it's like so not necessary. It's like, really, for her big note, she has to be doing that move. Like, she couldn't stop for a hot second to just sing that note. And then, it was particularly in the scene in the song Saturday Night, where the lounge performer is performing for the first time. She's doing all these like gyrating moves while she's singing this song. She's like, no. And then during the ending of the song, she had the ensemble dancers were doing like these kicks and these lifts in front of her.
Right.
And I was like, what is happening here? Why are we blocking the star singing the star song? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. But let's not have any lifts anywhere else in the entire musical.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I like irresponsible. I think that's very funny.
It's
an irresponsible thing to do. Y'all have said it all. More is more is the funny thing that at least has permeated the Winnipeg theater scene a lot as a slogan. And I wish more was more in this. As far as choreo goes.
Yeah.
Like, if there's one relatively cheap showcase that you don't have to spend money on other than salaries. You know what I mean? It's not a big special effects budget. It's throwing people around.
Right.
Or whatever it is, like lifts and throws or crazy dances. That was severely missing for me, especially maybe this played better off Broadway. But now that you're moving it to the Broadway stage, put up your budget, hire 10 more dancers, and like have them throw each other around.
I mean, in the second act, there wasn't a lot of songs for them to be dancing to, I guess. But even, like choreo could have been used in any of those little gags.
Yeah.
So, let's give it a rating.
So, out of 10 playbills, how many monkeys, Steph, do you give this choreo?
We're going guest first all the time.
Always.
This time. Wow.
Especially because she's been critical of our generosity, and I want to know. I want to know where she lands before I make my final judgment.
The barometer of how of your rating. Okay. I'm gonna give the choreo a 4.
Higher than the direction. Are you kidding me?
Higher than the direction because I believe it's the director's fault that there wasn't more choreo in the show.
I disagree wholeheartedly. I go opposite you. Direction was 4 for me. This is 3. I think the choreo is the weakest part of this whole piece.
Okay.
Yep.
I can't believe I am rating this higher than both of you for someone who doesn't even like this show. I don't like this show. I wish I could get my time back, but here we are. And so I give this choreo a 5.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. We're just fighting for lowest scores now. We're like just trying to see who's going to do the lowest.
Should we talk about what it all looked like?
Absolutely. Let's talk about the design.
Hi everyone, this is producer Daphne speaking, a little bit earlier in the episode than I normally talk to you guys. This week we wanted to give a special shout out to our friends over at Stageworthy Podcast. Stageworthy is a weekly podcast about Canadian theatre and the people who make it, now in its 4th year. Each week, host Paul Rickaby talks to theatre makers, actors, directors, and more about their theatre origin stories and what makes their artistic souls tick. Listen and subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, or check out the archive of over 275 episodes at stageworthypodcast.com.
There are a lot of familiar names on this design team, so here we go. Scenic design by Tobin Ost, friend of the podcast from last episode, Bonnie and Clyde and Newsies. Costume design by William Ivy Long, also friend of the podcast and friend of Broadway, like has literally done everything, busiest costume designer.
Totally.
Lighting design by Jeff Kreuter, who did Something Rotten, Falsettos, Bandstand, and several others, so has been pretty busy lately. Sound design by Mark Menard, just a couple things under his belt. Hair and wig design by Paul Huntley, also friend of the podcast. And then makeup design by Anne Ford Coates, not friend of the podcast. Not because we don't like her, just she doesn't really do much. We don't know her.
Future friend of the podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
They have clothes on.
Yeah.
But sometimes
an
they
aquarium.
don't. Yeah. Producer Daff is doing like the so-so motion with her hands.
Wait, I didn't even remember what happened until Daphne did that.
Yeah, especially in Act 2,
Right.
all the women are like doing the whole like, oh, look at my tastefully ripped
Yeah, that's
outfit
true.
from the
Totally.
disaster.
That's so true.
And it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, hadn't even, but yeah, now that you mention it, I remember.
I totally forgot about that.
So the design department for this, I feel the need to really to talk about this separately, to talk about the lighting and sound design separately from the set and
Okay.
costume design. I liked a lot of the lighting design. Especially we had some fun bits, like I mentioned, the strobe bit where it made look like everyone was bouncing around the ship.
That also might fall into performance, Paul, but we can get
fair
to
enough,
that
fair enough.
later.
For whatever reason, and this might be an arrangement thing, I don't know what it is with the jukebox musicals, but I can always just hear the harmony lines.
Right.
Why is it in the most familiar songs that you know that the harmony lines are always the loudest ones you can hear?
Hot, 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 hot stuff.
Stop.
Hot, hot, hot.
And then very faintly, you've got this melody on top of it.
Yeah.
It just always happens. I don't know the sound design thing, but it just like in every jukebox musical, any group number, harmony line, it's always the hottest.
This is my new favorite thing that has happened on the pod.
That's fair.
that is
That's
so
very
funny.
fair. I don't have many comments about the lighting design. The sound design, that's a very valid point. That's something we can judge. Harmony lines were too hot. Too hot stuff.
Too hot stuff.
We're dancing around this. Can someone just friggin' say that we hate the costumes in the set?
Okay, so here's the thing. Before Daphne had reminded me of the horrendous things that happen at the end of Act 2, or just all of Act 2, I thought that the costumes were super appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
They're great, they're super apropos of the 70s. Even the colors that they use, the purples and the lime greens, like, I just thought they were so great. Set, I think it was on purpose, so I can't really, it was appropriate for what they were doing. The lighting, I didn't even really notice. I guess it's great for how they were transitioning through the different bits that they were doing. But then, plot twist, everything starts ripping off.
Yep.
For whatever reason, I mean, I guess a lot of the bits don't make sense, that they're literally just there to get a laugh. That something gets ripped off and it's like, ha ha ha, the thing is ripped off. But it didn't do anything for me. Like the twin bit, at least there was like some kind of further plot thing that it was doing or something. It had some kind of purpose. But the ripping of the dresses were just like as cheap as it gets.
I feel the exact same way, and maybe that falls under. Does that fall under design, or does that fall under direction as well? Right?
Direction.
That's a bad choice, Jack Plotnick. -1 monkey for you. Can we please make note on the record? We would like to retroactively change that rating to -1 playbill.
Yeah.
For promoting.
I'll make a note of it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Misogyny in satire is still misogyny.
Did you think there were enough feathers and sequins? Because I did not. I wanted more. And I honestly, did not think I would say that, but William Ivy Long, I just needed a few more feathers and a few more sequins.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wondered, as I'm hearing you or listening to the two of you talk about this, is I wonder how much of this design team was part of the off and the off-Broadway productions, because I think that set-wise, it played like an off-Broadway, which doesn't bother me, but in a Broadway theater setting, it doesn't really read.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just wondering if maybe there's something there. I'm sure William Ivy Long was only a part of the Broadway production, and you can tell because those costumes are so eye-catching and vibrant, right? It's right to the back of the house. But I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if it has something to do with that.
This is this big challenge I think this musical faced. I watched both a Broadway sizzle and an off-Broadway sizzle reel.
Yeah.
And the off-Broadway sizzle reel looks great. I watched that and I'm like, that's the show I want to go see.
Right.
You can see the audience in the front row. You can hear them reacting in real time.
Yeah.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of been touching on this a few times now. I think that this show is a fantastic off-Broadway show. They didn't consider how many changes would need to be made to have it play in, what's the Nederlander, like 1,200 seats or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, something along those
It's a
lines.
freaking cave, you know what I mean? It's so big.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They didn't consider how many changes would need to be made to have it play to a house that size.
Yeah.
Let's throw them all in one. Out of 10, where are we going?
I'm going to rate this, the sets, costume, and lighting design, 5 monkeys out of 10 Playbills.
What?
Maybe debatably even 6.
Wow.
Or 7. I'm going high. Let's go high. I'm going to go,
Wow.
I'm going to go 8.
You know we max out at 10, right?
You're taking the monkey that we took from Jack Plotnick and giving it to the set to
Yes,
sign?
exactly. Because again, I think it's the director's fault that any of
Right.
this is not good.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping my word on that. I'm giving 8 to these hardworking people who just wanted to do what the director wanted them to do. I will stick with 8.
I'm a sucker for giving respect to the hardworking journeymen who work on shows.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say 6, which is higher than I thought, because you convinced me to add an extra. I'm going to go 6.
I land at a 6.
But now I'm so excited because I want to talk about the performances.
So obviously there's a lot of folks in this show. There have been a lot of folks involved with this since the beginning.
Yeah.
I will not name them all, but if you would like to see the full cast list, I would encourage you to visit ibdb.com and search Disaster, and then you will be able to see who is all involved. Let's go with notable, like the good ones first.
Because there's several Broadway celebrities.
Oh, so many.
Only one. Adam Pascal is the only possible one who would be like a mainstream celebrity, and even then, only maybe. Do you think so?
I might argue Roger Bart would be the most recognizable in terms of like when you look at him, but people might not know his name the way they know Adam Pascal's name.
Right.
That's my gut.
But there's no question Roger Bart is an enormous Broadway star.
Mm-hmm.
We got Carrie Butler. We got Adam Pascal. We got Faith Prince. And we have Brian Luttrell's son, Bailey Luttrell.
No.
That's my surprise for you.
You're kidding me.
The twins are Bailey Luttrell.
Oh my God. My favorite Backstreet Boy.
Yeah, there you go. That's a Backstreet son.
That is a
In the cast.
Backstreet baby boy.
It's a Backstreet baby boy.
Wow.
This changes everything.
This is what I mean. Doesn't that
I
change
think
everything?
we should start from the beginning.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. I also think we should mention Rachel York, seasoned Broadway vet who played Jackie, and then also Kevin Chamberlain, who's done so much stuff. There are it's names on names on names.
There's also less names, but Jennifer Simard.
Yes.
Plays
Yes.
the nun, plays Sister Mary Downey, and just destroys it left and right.
So excellent. I wish everyone was in the same show that she was in.
Yeah,
Yes.
right? She gets
Yes.
it. Yeah. And is it Lacreta Nicole plays the disco diva?
Yeah.
She does a very nice job
So
too. Very
excellent.
nice. Really a great
So
voice.
good.
Okay, is it safe to say that we actually enjoyed these performances, the people, the actors in this show?
I would say that the relative unknowns, like Jennifer Simard and Lacreta Nicole, embarrass Roger Bart and Adam Pascal.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Like, they should be
absolutely.
embarrassed to be sharing the stage with these relative unknowns who are performing circles around them.
Jennifer Simard, honestly, now that role is like a dream role of mine because it was just so good. Everything she did was so specific and so funny, and her voice is outrageous. It was like,
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
you can't be that funny and that specific and then also have that kind of voice. It blew my mind. She blew my mind.
Yeah. Adam Pascal, on the other hand, looks like he needs to get some sleep.
And drink some water.
He looks so sleepy. like
So dehydrated.
it's this weird thing where he was a rocker, and they scooped him up for rent, and he felt really weird performing. And since then, he's been like, no, Broadway, this is it. This is where it's at for me.
You know, he sings Can't Live, which is amazing. Again, I loved the rendition of that song. But then I watched it and was like, what's happening here? This is just ridiculous.
It's like, why did he say yes to this? Because he clearly doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Right.
He clearly doesn't understand this show.
He was super out of place. Very, very out of place.
Roger Bart is one of the other two performances in this that I really take issue with.
Mm.
Well, maybe I had a bad taste in my mouth from the gross joke at the beginning, but I just think he either doesn't go hard enough on like the greasiness or doesn't camp it up enough to be a joke.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Like, it's freaking Roger Bart. He's over the top. Let's see it.
Again, coming back to blame the director. That character, Tony, was so normal. Like, just, not normal, but just very, like, actually could have been this creepy person, creepy guy, like, you know, just in our everyday lives. It wasn't heightened in any way, whereas everybody else had that, like, flavor of, like, they all had that, like, heightened personality, and it felt like Tony's character and Adam Pascal's Chad was very much like, are you, like, what world are you guys in?
Yeah.
Because it's not what everybody else is in.
So, a few more honorable mentions before we talk about the Seth Rudetsky in the room. Carrie Butler sounds great, as always, surprising no one.
Yeah. I really like her.
Me too.
Her sound is super pleasing, and there's an ease to it that's very pleasing to the ear.
Mm-hmm.
Faith Prince is very fun to watch. You know, it's obvious she's not incredibly comfortable on stage, but you're like, Faith Prince is in this.
Yeah,
That's fun.
Totally.
Well, that made me happy, at least. I really want to get to, in my opinion, the real weak link of this cast and the real disaster in this show, which is poor Mr. Seth Rudetsky.
Well, let's get to it then.
I'm glad we said I like Seth Rudetsky before, and I don't want to. I think what he's done for Broadway media, like a similar thing to what we're doing here, is great.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, he's real bad in this.
I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know how he goes from this amazing personality as as himself.
Charming, and he's engaging.
Yeah, he's so good and so funny. I just don't understand how that happens. That the transition onto a scripted role that's not him is this bad.
How would you make? Because sure, this is Seth Rudetsky's disaster. Seth Rudetsky needs to be in it.
But why? Why does he have to be in it, though?
Well, there we go. Maybe he doesn't. I assumed he did because it's Seth Rudetsky's disaster.
Yeah, like, he created it, but I don't think he necessarily needed to be in it.
So if you're a tourist and you've watched all the Obsessed videos, and you go to see, you're going to want to see Seth Rudetsky. Or maybe not. You don't think so?
No.
I don't have any specific feelings about seeing a person like him because, like, he doesn't come to the front of my mind when I'm thinking about performers I'd be dying to see. Even though he's, like, a very involved person in that community, he's not a person that I have on my wish list to, like, see perform.
If you want to see Seth Rudetsky, you're going to see a talk or something, or,
or a cabaret,
show. A cabaret,
something
yeah,
like
totally.
that. Yeah, where he is, like Steph said, himself.
I buy my tickets for the talkback night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's
totally.
what I want. Because, like, he's not an actor. So why would I go to a musical expecting him to be acting?
Right.
Yeah.
So out of 10 Playbills, how many monkeys are we giving these performances?
So I'm going to give the cast, the performances, a 9 monkeys out of 10 Playbills.
Ooh.
Because I will say that no matter what, it's always the toughest to be out there performing this stuff. So regardless of if I thought it was good or bad, that's the hardest job.
They put themselves out there, man. Yeah.
But also because I'm rating my loves for Rachel York and Jennifer Simard and like all of the stronger performances.
I'm gonna go a little lower. I'm gonna give a 7.
I'm at about an 8.5 for the performances because I think the good ones really elevate the medium ones because it's not necessarily that they're just bad.
Yes, that's true.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. I'm good with that.
And to include the ensemble members in that as well, because I was watching the ensemble members and there's dances that they do have to do are really great and they do a good job.
They're working their asses off. Yeah.
And they don't make fun of it. That's always my thing. I'm like, are you making fun of this or are you in it? And they were in it.
They're in it to win it, yeah. Y'all, should this be a musical?
Yes, but you gotta buy me dinner first. Or at the same time.
I agree, yes. I think there's a place for this kind of thing. I think it's fun. I think that on a conceptual level, this concept is strong and it has legs.
Yeah. Steph?
Steph?
Yes, but you have to buy me dinner.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is 2016. What's going on in 2016?
Oh, not much. Just Hamilton and Waitress.
Oh, was that year?
Are you serious?
This is the... Okay.
And like Color Purple revival?
Color Purple revival, She Loves Me revival. Like, this is another year that, to me, I think some things got missed because Hamilton was finally in its eligible Tony year, and so was Waitress. And both of those just ended up being, like, sweeps, essentially. And then, of course, the revivals were amazing as well. That was the Spring Awakening revival.
Oh, the Deaf West.
The Deaf West production.
Yeah.
Color Purple. Fiddler was on at that same time as well. Anyway, it was just an amazing year, but also the year of American Psycho and Disaster.
What a wild year.
I would encourage everyone to look up this Tony year because once you wade through the Hamilton and Waitress stuff, there's actually a lot of like exciting theater that happened around the same time. So Disaster did get one nomination. A well-earned nom. Steph, do you know which one it was?
Yeah.
Which one was it?
It was for Best Featured Actress, Jennifer Simard.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
good.
Queen. The queen of all queens.
Very well deserved.
Which is pretty wild for her to even be nominated.
Mm-hmm.
It's no wonder they didn't get more. How something like this can play against this season.
Oh, I know.
Unless I'm misremembering the timeline, the Tony noms came down. They posted closing like the same day.
Oh, they must have because they closed early May and noms usually go out around that time.
Like it was like they were holding on specifically to see what the noms would be like. And as soon as they were nothing, they posted closing.
That's really
Aw.
sad.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a wild Tony year, an exciting Tony year. No wonder I missed Disaster is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Oh yeah, and Disaster did not perform, in case you were wondering.
But if they did, what number would they have done?
Excellent
Great question. The Morse code number.
I knew
No,
it.
knock on wood. Knock on wood.
Okay, probably. The Morse code number is just for me.
It's that time of the evening when we have to make a choice. We have three choices. Three choices stand before us. This is the way it has to be. Is Disaster on Broadway a flop? Is it a secret bop? Or do we need to make it stop?
Paul, why don't you go first?
I think this is a secret bop.
Oh.
I don't think this show was right for Broadway.
Yeah.
And I think they made a lot of mistakes having it on Broadway, but the show itself, I think, is fun and dumb, and the right production could be a friggin' blast, and I'd like to work on it.
And by your logic, I actually agree in the sense that I don't want it to not exist. Like, I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's a make it stop. I don't know if I'm in the full bop camp, but this Broadway production was a flop.
Yep, totally. This Broadway production is a flop.
But the show feels like a bop. Okay, Steph, go for it.
Well, I knew what my answer was coming into this podcast, and this is a secret bop.
Secret bop! Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree.
It
Who knew?
absolutely is. And also, there's just so many entertaining aspects of the show. It's super funny. It's super campy. That's the word. Campy to just,
Yep.
that
Campy,
is my
yeah.
one word. Campy. And we have, there's room for that in this industry.
Absolutely.
And I think that it would make an amazing high school
Yeah.
production. I truly, truly do. You know, even Tony's character is not completely gross, and there's a way to kind of like
Yeah.
class that up. They could, you know, they could do so many different things with it. And I also think it would be a great production for the Fringe.
It should be a lawyer show or a dentist show.
Exactly.
Yep. I completely agree.
Just looking at these stats right now, with the attendance that they were getting on Broadway each week, they would have been selling out the biggest off-Broadway houses in New York, just for what it's worth. And they were playing to 50% capacity.
Jeez.
I think that tells us something, you know?
Jill, can we talk you into Secret Bop?
Off-Broadway bop.
Off-Broadway Bop. Great.
That you can talk me into.
We did it.
We did the thing.
Stephanie Sy, Jillian Willems. This has been, I don't even know what to say, like old times and like new times, and
Aw, it's
just the
true.
best thing in the world.
What a joy it was to spend some time with you, to have you kind of talk me into this type of show. I appreciate that. It's why I'm friends with folks who are opposite me, right?
Who have cheap taste.
Was that the subtext?
Stephanie Sai, is there anything we can shout out for you?
Currently, I am working on a show called Post-Democracy by Hannah Moscovich at Prairie Theatre Exchange. And we are in rehearsals right now and are going to be filming the production at the beginning of March. And it's going to be available for people to view in April. Those specific dates are April 8th to the 25th.
Woo!
Yeah, you can find tickets online at Prairie Theatre Exchange's website.
That's so rad. I can't wait to see it.
So exciting.
That's so incredible. As well, Village Conservatory for Music Theatre, who produces this podcast, is also working on a project where 14 of our students have created 5-minute pieces. We're filming them, releasing them. That'll be at the end of March, so y'all should follow the Village Conservatory social media for more. Also, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, shout us out, interact with us. We love to talk with our fans, with people who are listening. Let us know how you're doing.
Oh, what a joy. What a joy.
Hi everyone, this is producer Daphne speaking. Thank you all so much for listening to Monkeys and Playbills, the show where we take a look at Broadway musicals that had 100 performances or fewer before closing. To learn more about the show, you can follow us on Instagram at Monkeys and Playbills Pod, on Twitter at Monkey Playbills, or email us at monkeysandplaybillspod@gmail.com. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/monkeysandplaybills. Monkeys and Playbills is proud to be a Village Conservatory for Music Theatre podcast. Original music for the show is provided by Paul DeGers, and the show is produced and edited by Daphne Finlayson. So thank you all so much for listening and for all of the support that you've shown us so far. So we're going to be doing things a little bit differently next week. As you will have heard from our team during this podcast, we are bonkers busy, actually, which is a really nice feeling for a change as a couple of arts workers who have been out of work in some capacity or another since March 2020. We're excited to show you what we got for some bonus content and to also help cross a few more shows off our list, especially the ones that are bonkers old and therefore predate YouTube and bootleg culture. So stick around, we'll show you what we got next week with Revive or Die.